I was saying this on my stream the other day to my followers because they were asking me about how to grow their channels. And I was like, I don't think you should be anything except yourself. Like, you should be honest about your opinions. You should be able to like make friends with people, with anybody, and to disagree with them at the same time. Like, you should never agree with somebody 100% ever. That's weird. That's like a cult. That's what a cult follower does with a leader. You know what I mean? And even when the leader steps out of line, sometimes the cults, they got to bring him back in. Like, hey, you can't say that. You're supposed to stand for something. If you're behaving like you should be, a hive mind organism, contributing to the group, and therefore the group's growing in popularity and the group is doing something positive and you're contributing, if you step out of that, you have a bullseye on your face.
Hello and welcome to CultureScape, the show that interviews the geek creators and influencers that built our modern nerd culture. We have with us the enigmatic Lofti Pixels, the Twitter and video viral sensation responsible for some of the most popular video memes you might have seen. Lofti is the meme guy and video editor for the popular YouTube channel The Quartering, where he assists Jeremy Hambley with putting together segments and very funny opening meme videos. Lofti is here to talk about his career, how he got into content creation, what that entails, and how to make a meme go viral. I'd also like to talk about Lofti's goals to provide interesting but honest content. One of the things I love about Lofti is that he will tell you if he thinks something is woke or not woke, and he won't embellish it like many of us are tempted to do. If you like what you hear today, you can follow Lofti on his YouTube channel and Twitter account, same name, at Lofti Pixels. We will discuss all this and more. Thank you, Lofti, for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me on, man. That was a good intro. I like it.
Nice. Okay, Lofti. So you are we are with you in your VTuber persona.
Yeah, it's just the easiest. It's the easiest way for me to exist in the internet. I don't like having a camera up 24/7. For just a variety of random reasons, but yeah, it's just easy for me. A lot of people think it's funny, so I do it for the humor, partially as well. Yeah.
I think it keeps you interesting. It's like, who is this guy? Who is this strange Lofti of which they speak? Okay, so Lofti, tell us a little bit about your career. How did you get into making videos? How did you become interested in video editing?
Well, yeah, like internet video editing in this day and age is like kind of chaos. It's just chaos. Like, first of all, I didn't go to school for any of it. And I wouldn't if you want to do I'll start by saying this. If you want to do video editing for YouTube or Twitch or anything like that, you don't need to go to school. So what I did was I taught myself how to do editing. I started by making funny videos. So in high school, I did short films. I actually worked on some short films with, friends and a feature-length film. But really, it was just making videos that I thought were funny, putting them up on my YouTube channel. And people started to notice. Some of them went viral. And then essentially, I just used those as a portfolio to get a job with a big YouTube channel. And that's how I started. This was the YouTube channel was a gaming channel called Skill Up. Highly recommend. If you're into video games, I highly recommend his channel. And Layman Gaming was the other one. They're brothers. But I got a job with them, and they gave me a shot. And it was awesome. That was a great experience.
So how did you go from there to where you are currently working with The Quartering?
Well, I went to E3 in 2019 with them, and I did about 15 videos in the span of like 4 days for them on their channel. I did some networking there, and then I ended up using those videos as a portfolio for somebody. Well, Jeremy at the time from The Quartering was looking for an editor, and he actually referenced them in his his resume request. he was looking for similar content. They were doing meme insertions in some of their long form video content. They would put some memes in there just to make it more funny and do some quirky editing. And that's what he wanted. And then, like I said, I had a portfolio ready to go, and I sent him an email, and then I did a test for him, and then I got hired for that. And that was back in 2020. That was right. For me, that was wild because I was supposed to go to Japan to teach English for a year or 2 years. Yeah. And then COVID hit, and that completely fell off. Like nobody really went. Like that entire class of teachers, like like the JET program or whatever. Anyway, so that I was depressed about that. And then I was able to get a job at the Courting like a month later. I was shocked. I was like, well, that worked out really well.
Yeah, that was it seemed like there were bigger plans for you. Even though
Right.
I'm sure teaching in Japan would be an awesome experience.
I would have loved it. I've been to Japan before, and I love it. I love Japan. I love Yokohama, Akihabara, Tokyo. That's where I was. But yeah.
Okay, so let's get into what the job entails. So, how do you guys pick your topics or your targets? What's the workflow you and your team like to use?
Okay, that's a great question. Two things before I answer that. Number one, if my headset dies, I'm just going to plug it in. But it might. I guess if you're editing that's not a huge problem.
Yeah.
But number two, I would say this. Well, first of all, I'm currently freelance. So I worked for Jeremy for about 3 years, 2020 to 2020 to December of 2022. So about, I can't do math, but that's how. And then last month, I kind of went freelance. It was getting a little bit, because I'm trying to kind of do my own thing at the moment, and it was getting a little bit complicated working full time with somebody else, and it wasn't working as it functioning as it used to. So what we ended up doing was getting 2 other editors and just making a transition. But so right now I'm freelance. But you asked about workflow.
Yeah. How do you figure out what you want to cover? What's the process you go through to get there?
Well, it's when you're working with a big YouTuber and they have all the content that they want, and then you're basically the producer. I was basically the producer / editor. I just do basically we have a system where he says, okay, we're going to cover Elon Musk today. Gives me a little bit of heads up. I come up with an idea for a funny skit. So basically what I was doing was just making funny content for the first 2 minutes of his video to hook an audience. And that's a big thing. Hooking an audience is the first 2 minutes is huge. If you just see a guy talking like right off the bat, and like if it's not an interesting topic, you won't get views. So we figured out was if we're talking about Elon Musk, I might have to make a reference to like Iron Man or something, or like Tony Stark, and do like a funny pop culture reference. And so he would give me a little bit of leeway, and I would come up with an idea, and then in about 90 minutes I would turn around a 2-minute thing for him and send it via OneDrive remotely. And we did this like 3-4 times a day, and then that's kind of the workflow. It's very organic. It's just, hey, I have an idea. We're going to talk about Elon Musk. We're going to talk about a game, GameStop, or some other video game or entertainment thing, Disney, and then I have to come up with some ideas for it. And then that turned into a lot of positive things for his channel. I think we gained 600,000 subscribers in about 1 year when I started. Yeah, it was wild. It was a wild year.
Yeah, it was kind of fun to see for, I like Jeremy. He's a good guy. And he was successful, obviously, beforehand, but that extra level that kind of raised it up. And it does seem to help his popularity, right? And you are correct. Talking Head YouTube, they don't typically mix it up. That's changing. You guys probably played a role in that, I'm sure. But I'm sure,
I don't know. It's weird because I have noticed other people doing similar stuff lately, and it's great because I would like more humor in the community, if you want to call it, whatever this online space is. I think the funnier the better. So if we can get away from just and just evolve the whole evolve the style, like we're constantly trying to hook people and bring them in and talk about pop culture and talk about things that we're interested in. We got to be entertaining,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, put some pride into your work. So for this job, it's so you're saying you're doing like 3 or 4, so you probably do about 90 minutes for each. So I'm sure just the work of it, but to do this job, you probably have to like make sure you get up at a certain time, make sure you're aware of what's going on. I'm sure you have to kind of understand what's going on in the zeitgeist on Twitter. So I imagine that there's a lot of the work you do there that's just for background to keep you sharp.
Yeah, that's like something you just gotta do, no matter how much you don't like it. Like if you're not a Twitter consumer, you gotta be, or at least you have to watch a lot of content in order to stay up to date on all this stuff and to get the breaking news out, right? That's the majority of our of the Quartering's views came from breaking news the first 12 hours. Like that was 90% of his viewership. And a lot of these channels, 90% or whatever, 80+% of the views come in within the first 12 hours. And then 2 days later, 3 days later, it's irrelevant. So it's very weird. Yes, because if we're talking about Elon buying Twitter, 3 days later he's not buying Twitter. So nobody's going to go back and watch the old video. So it's very interesting. You got to be able to move forward. If you make a mistake, if you say you can't think, you got to make a video, put it out, and then start on the next one. It's kind of how it works.
Yeah, it's a benefit that since people forget, then they can be a bit more forgiving for other work. But it probably is a little frustrating too. It's like that's you like work on a video that you feel is amazing, and then the one that actually gets traction is like the one you half-assed. I'm sure.
Correct.
I mean, that's a common occurrence for people. I'm sure that can be very frustrating.
Yeah, or it's like something that you don't expect to be a problem, and then it's set like especially with comedy, it's hard. Like sometimes you make a joke, and it's like, whoops, I shouldn't have done that. But you just can't. You got to move on.
Yeah, no, exactly. Can't get too tangled up in things. So, how is because you not only just the videos you put on YouTube are viral, but a lot of your Twitter videos, in fact, which is a lot harder to do, I think, is to actually get a Twitter video out and to get 10,000 plus views.
That's a misconception. I'll explain.
Okay.
So here's the problem. So I think it's much easier to grow on Twitter than it is on YouTube. And the reason why I say that is because on Twitter, when you're interacting with the community and you're putting out videos, other people are sharing them, and they're sharing them on the platform that you shared them to. And because of that, there's this like proximity to everything's all on one platform. So what I'm trying to say is the videos on Twitter that people are sharing tend to go viral much more so than if you put a YouTube link to a video onto Twitter. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you're putting, I'm sure you are. So if you're putting a YouTube link on Twitter and expecting your YouTube video to get a bunch of likes from it, it's not. Most people don't click on links outside of Twitter, but they will watch a video on Twitter that has embedded and is playing, the video. They'll sit and watch it. So that's my philosophy. I think it's easier to grow on Twitter, and I think Elon or whoever's running Twitter should be encouraging YouTubers to, especially small YouTubers, to put all their content out on Twitter because it's much easier to grow. And then part of that is because once you get noticed by like 1, 2, 3, 4 bigger channels and they start following you, they will share some of your videos, and their 175,000 followers will see the video. That doesn't happen on YouTube. You don't have big channels like Mr. Beast sharing smaller videos on YouTube. Smaller, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It just doesn't happen. So it's just like I'm trying to say that like you have a much bigger chance of going viral and gaining a bunch of followers on Twitter than you do on YouTube. That's just my perspective.
I think the advantage of YouTube, especially, it feels like that is so tied up in the algorithms that the human elements, it just seems so far detached from what's going on there. Whereas in Twitter, I think it's more immediate. I mean, there are algorithms on play, but you are right. There's something more human about it, because it's not even just some company liking it, or it's not some tech bro that works at YouTube liking it. It's just a normal person. And the popularity, the product to the popularity, that seems like a shorter connection.
Like I can give you an example. I'm trying to find one here. From today, I got 8,000 views on a video today in the past 20 hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's somewhat common for me. Sometimes I'll get 30,000-40,000 views on Twitter from the same video. If I put it out on YouTube, it'll get about like 1,000 to 2,000 on a good day for my channel. And it's like I said, it's because of the viral nature of Twitter. It's everybody's, it's weird because people are sharing it, right? Like I'm like certain big channels follow me, like Shoe on Head follows me, like Gary from Nerdrotic, like some of those channels will share your content if they're nice, and you're going to get a lot of views. That's just Yeah.
So it sounds like you're pretty happy with the state of Twitter. Are you happy with what Musk is doing, or do you have good feelings for the future of Twitter?
That's up in the air. I wish that they would be able to I wish I could monetize my content on Twitter. You can't currently, which is sad. Well, maybe you can, but I don't have any access to any of that like Twitter Blue stuff at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I wish there was a way to do. I think Mr. Beast has some really good ideas about how to fix Twitter. If one of the best things you can do as a small independent YouTuber is watch Mr. Beast's episode on Joe Rogan. He just gives free advice away, and it's brilliant advice. It's excellent advice, and he's the best. He's the best at it on YouTube by far. He's better than anybody. It's a great episode,
which is reflected in his astounding number of views.
Astounding. And on TikTok, he was the highest, TikToker this past year, like fastest growing, like 1 million subs or something. I don't even know. Yeah,
TikTok is weird though. I'm never sure how much I trust the numbers over there, but I'm sure I could believe that he's the most popular. He got paid like nothing, like almost nothing for all that effort too.
I know. Yeah, it's wild.
So not to get too personal. So what did your family think when you were like, I want to focus on editing videos. I want to focus on working on YouTube. Some people, my family is a bit more traditional. So they might be like, oh, you're going to be an influencer, huh?
Right.
Prepare to be hungry. What did the people around you in your life think about this career path?
My family's very creative. My dad's an actor and my mom's a singer. And it was so fast that I didn't even really, I wasn't like struggling for a while because I was working other jobs. Like I was doing retail, I was doing Uber, whatever I could do. And then during college. And I was trying to get I have a double majored in English and film studies and journalism, actually. So I combine.
Nice.
It's weird. My major I was allowed to create my major at university. It's called multidisciplinary studies. So I combined the English major with the film studies minor and the journalism minor into one thing. So that was, they were excited, they were happy I was doing that. And I was supposed to go into like journalism or like video production after that. And I didn't because I got a job with a big YouTuber, and they thought it was cool. Yeah.
Nice. I'm glad to hear that. This is a good segue because you have sometimes earned the ire of a few journalists slash I mean, I don't know if I call Kotaku a news outlet, but outlets. And they're like, who is this person? How dare he make fun of? I don't even remember what you made fun of. I got them so mad.
Oh, do you mean on Twitter?
Yeah. I've seen things before. People are like, how could this terrible person tell this joke? Who is this? Who is this strange Lofti Pixels?
Yeah, when you're putting yourself out there, you're going to get some feedback, right? And everything's so polarizing that you're going to get this is an interesting segue because essentially what you should be doing in any public and any kind of creative field is avoiding at all costs any kind of bubble or cult or picking and choosing a side of something.
Definitely.
Because what happens is if you're in a cult or if you're in a group and you like quote unquote belong to something, if you're behaving like you should be in a hive mind organism or like a group or some sort of like a cult, like you're contributing to the group and therefore the group's growing in popularity and the group is doing something positive and you're contributing. If you step out of that, you have a bullseye on your face. And that's what got me in trouble a couple of times with various different kinds of people, because I don't belong to a hive mind. I don't belong to a group. I'm just kind of a person. And that's actually what I like about the online nerd community, because generally speaking, the nerd community has always been not very. It's not supposed to be a hive mind. I've had our arguments with all kinds of different people in this community about movies, about games and stuff, about culture, about it's great. Sometimes there's arguments that are because of how divisive we are. It's almost like, well, you gotta pick your battles. You almost have to pick your hill to die on sometimes.
Yeah.
But I've been attacked more so from people who would be perceived as politically correct than anything else. That's probably where most of the aggression comes from.
It's also probably because you're effective. It's one thing if they're annoyed, but they consider that person like a gnat. But that you and the projects you've worked on have just done so well.
That's effectiveness is big. That's correct. Because there's some jealousy there. There's some people who are like, well, he's making a good point, so I have to cancel him. Like, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. Or like nobody should be allowed to listen to this person because they're kind of getting to the bottom of something that's real, and we don't want that exposed. And like I don't try to be like that kind of person. Like I'm not I don't. That's one thing I don't think you should like. I was saying this on my stream the other day to my followers because they were asking me about how to grow their channels, and I was like, I don't think you should be anything except yourself. Like you should be honest about your opinions. You should be able to like make friends with people, with anybody, and to disagree with them at the same time. Like you should never agree with somebody 100% ever. That's weird. That's like a cult. That's what a cult follower does with a leader. You know what I mean? And even when the leader steps out of line, sometimes the cults, they got to bring him back in. Like, hey, you can't say that. You're supposed to stand for something. You know what I mean? It gets wild.
It is true. I've seen that with the quartering. There's a few times I can remember where he said some opinion like, "Oh, hey, whoa, we lost him. We gotta save Jeremy."
Well, look, Jeremy's good at that. Jeremy's kind of good at being himself. I think that's why he's popular. Somebody like I don't know if I'm supposed to drop names here, but I would say somebody like Hassan. I would say somebody like Hassan Piker or Ethan Klein are in danger because they are in a cult and they are cult leaders, They are in danger of getting in trouble with their own people if they say anything that goes against what they've basically laid the foundation for their own failure or their demise. So that's that. It's like a weird. This society that we live in now is crazy. It's like it's hard to exist in it.
Oh, it is. And I like that comment you said about the nerd community. That's kind of, that's what I grew up as. That's kind of what I think of myself first as a nerd. And I, really until like 2014, 2015, if I went to some kind of convention or a D&D role play night, or went to like go play MTG at the local, I don't have a good word for this, nerd shop. That sounds dumb. It was great because like politics never came up. No one really cared about that stuff. It was just kind of like the activity you're focused on, and that was it. And I think the community online largely still reflects that. I mean, I think sometimes people do get stuck on things, but for the most part, they seem more tolerant, at least than other communities these days. Is that fair?
Oh, that's fair. That's very fair. That's very fair. There is definitely intolerance in any direction. In any direction, wherever you go, there is intolerance. But if you call it the nerd community or the online social, whatever, I don't know what the hell to call it anymore. People call the fandom menace or whatever the hell these words are. Mm-hmm. They are more accepting than almost anyone else, because the reason is because they appreciate when you have a disagreement with them. If you don't just resort to name calling, if you say, hey, look, I disagree with you, but here's why, instead of canceling them, instead of never talking to them, not wanting to go on their shows, telling other people to boycott their channels, all that kinds of stuff. I go on people's shows and disagree with them on their own show. They like that. They appreciate that. And they'll accept you for it. Now, certain people on the other side of the political spectrum won't even let you go on their own show. I'll never even get to the point of being able to disagree in a friendly way with them because they won't let me on. Even though I might have a lot in common with these people, but it's like, oh, you're adjacent to X person, therefore you got to be canceled. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's the problem. And everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. You know what I mean? Everybody knows it. I don't know.
I will push back a little bit because I totally agree, by the way, that people get tunnel vision about their groups they're in. I just think that's how humans are built. We're very group thinking. But there are times I have seen certain things where you see, especially in pop culture. So the new TV show or movie comes out, and quickly people either decide, is this woke or is it not? And sometimes those things will really develop very quickly, and you will be out of step in it. And some people, they can get pretty upset. You're right. You don't see as much blocking. You don't see as much cancellation, but it does happen.
Oh, no, it does happen. And I've been on that. Yeah, no, I see it. I see it a lot. It's a problem. It's definitely a problem. One of the biggest problems is like part of that groupthink mentality where it's like, okay, a trailer comes out to Indiana Jones, for example. Everyone already has a preconceived notion in their heads what they're supposed to think about it, regardless of what actually is in the trailer. It's Indiana Jones, it's Disney, and it's a sequel, and all of these things are like running through their heads. Like, okay, so it's a sequel, it's a modern Disney product, it's old indie, it has a young female in it. Without even watching the trailer, you're like, well, I guess I'm not allowed to like this. And they go into the trailer with that mindset, and they, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And then that sometimes that will affect people's interpretations of things. Happened with the Mario recently. Yes, and I got in trouble. I didn't get in trouble, but like I pushed back against a lot of these, some, not everybody, but some people in this community were calling it woke. We're saying that Peach is a feminist now because she's leading an army, which she's a freaking, she's the leader of the kingdom. That's what she does. And they're saying she's not a damsel in distress, so therefore it's a woke, subversion of the video games. And it's like, we calm down a second, calm down. We're gonna have more than one Mario movie. She's probably going to get captured in the second one, right? It's a probability. I don't want to see her captured in every single Mario movie. That would be repetitive and boring. You know what I mean? It's like, now that's what's one example. There's a bunch of examples of this stuff where if you have a different opinion, you're going to get dogpiled.
Yeah, and sometimes it's fun. Sometimes it is a little fun to be on the outside, pushing back. The Mario stuff is kind of funny because it was like so little information. It was like there's nothing here we can work on to really make an opinion of any kind, except that Chris Evans' voice, which it does seem like it's getting better.
The Chris Evans voice thing is not political at all. That's just preference.
That's just terrible.
Yeah, but there is this, like, well, we're supposed to hate on Hollywood, so that you have to come up with some excuse to hate Mario, and the easiest thing to do is to point to Princess Peach, and she's wearing a her Mario Kart suit, and therefore she's being masculinized. It becomes a conspiracy theory, and it's very embarrassing, actually.
How from the creator side, how do you? And I don't want to say anyone is disingenuous. That's not what I want to imply. Right. From the creator side, how do you think people end up into it? Is there a temptation sometimes to play up how woke something might be in the hopes that it gets more clicks? Or do you think people generally just do that?
I'd say you have to be clickbaity. And if you want to grow your channel, everybody knows this. I'm not saying anything. I'm not giving away any secrets, but you should be balancing that with being a genuine, media critic, right? And I think a lot of people that I'm friends with do a good job of that. What I mean by that is like the balance. Like it should be like 80-20, and like you gotta have, like I said, you gotta have a clickbait topic every once in a while, especially. It's hard to describe. It really is hard to describe because it's very complicated. But I don't think anyone's being disingenuous when they're actually talking about the stuff. When they're talking about the stuff, I think people are giving their honest opinions. And you can see it with Avatar. A lot of this community that I'm describing enjoyed the movie, despite knowing, and they said that, despite knowing that their own fans might call them shills or like consumers or Disney, paid Disney shills or something. And I appreciate that. I think Avatar was great. I think the way everybody handled it was fantastic. And if you don't like Avatar, don't pretend to like it. Like I genuinely believe people like Nerdrotic didn't like it. I don't have a problem with his take on any of it.
Oh, Gary, Nerdrotic in particular, he is completely, that is who that guy is.
He's just not a fan of that kind of storytelling. I get it. There is a lot of people in the community, though, that actually enjoy the negativity. And I don't know if it's like a chicken and the egg thing. If they enjoy it, so they become trolls, or if they're so traumatized by what modern art is becoming that they become cynical. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
no, good point.
Sometimes it's hard to tell. And I think they get wrapped up in a lot of negativity and name calling and rude insinuations that are completely unwarranted, like calling somebody a shill for liking or disliking something, or a contrarian, or, you know what I mean? Because, it's hard to pinpoint what the hell the problem is.
I wonder if part of the problem is that we have these properties that we really invested in and we love. So for me, I'll use Doctor Who. Doctor Who is fantastic. I loved it. It was very special to me. It was something it was the big sci-fi franchise that really took most of my energy, though I love Star Wars and Star Trek and the rest. Yeah. And watching what happened to it, it does make you kind of retroactively look at the rest of it and wonder if it was actually good. And then you become more sensitive to things that didn't bother you necessarily before. You're like, was this a sign of what's to come? Do you have any of that when you try to engage with this stuff?
I can't help it. I definitely do. A big example is Sony. I almost have a gag reflex at this point for anything that Sony puts out. Just personally, I don't like to use the word traumatized or anything like that. Some people use that word. People use the word like what's the other analogy that people use, like putting your hand on the stove and it burns, so you take it away and you never put it back on again. It's like, well, I'm not physically gonna throw up because one movie comes out that sucks, right? Or one of my franchises is ruined. Like, I'll go back and watch them again. But for example, Sony has destroyed Venom. Sony has destroyed Morbius. Sony has put out oh god, well, Venom 1 and 2 were horrible. They ruined Carnage. The only thing that I've liked from them recently was the Spider-Man movies, but that's just basically them trying to be Disney. That's all it is. Like, they're just might as well be a Disney Marvel MCU movie. There's other stuff I'm not thinking. Uncharted sucked. I don't know. Sony just bothers me. So yeah, I'm probably gonna have a bad taste in my mouth going forward when I hear something's going to be a Sony production. I can't avoid it. And I did the same thing with wow. I like to try to give things the benefit of the doubt.
Me too.
As much as possible, because a lot of the time I've been surprised. Like, Dune was fantastic. Dune was supposed to be bad. It was like, oh well, here's another Hollywood remake of a classic. They're going to destroy it. And then they showed like that Grim Reaper meme where they're like, here's the Grim Reaper kills Star Wars, Grim Reaper kills Star Trek, Grim Reaper kills such and such, and then here comes Dune. Well, it didn't. Dune was great, you know? I thought Arcane was fantastic. I liked Edge Runners. I liked Invincible. Those are all adaptations. Those are all good at Hollywood adaptations, modern. So I just have a little bit more optimism. That's all.
Yeah, sometimes I think a production, you should take it on its own merits. Sometimes, Edge Runners, there were definitely some things there that you could argue were woke or more politically progressive.
Oh, sure.
I don't think that took away from it. It's just,
no,
that's how they wanted to do the storytelling. And, wokeness often is a flavor. You don't want everything to be the same flavor. And often it's an excuse it's a bad production. This feels like this is kind of protecting it. But that doesn't mean something's automatically bad. But I don't think people are quite ready for that conversation, especially when they feel like they're always under fire for this kind of stuff.
It's a hard conversation to have, especially when you're having it with tens of thousands of people. You can't have it. You can have it with one person or five. But I will say the woke thing bothers me because they lump it. A lot of people seem to lump everything into the category of woke, or the genre, or whatever you want to call it. And it's like, oh, Save the Whales, Avatar 2, Save the Whales. That's woke. It's Dances with Wolves in Space. Well, I remember all these people were a lot of these people like Fern Gully, and a lot of these people like Dances with Wolves, and they like the Fern Gully is extremely environmentalist in its messaging. And these same people who won't go see Avatar 2 because it has whales will sit down and watch Fern Gully for the 35th time, on their VHS. It's like, and I like to point out a lot of these hypocrisies because I think it's very, very convinced. It's a good way to get your point across and make these people kind of think twice about what they're saying. And I do that. I try to do that because I don't like people around me all thinking the same and having the same thoughts. So
no, I understand, and I it goes back to why I consider myself a nerd gone to in the first place.
Yeah.
It's about loving these franchises, loving these fandoms, these contents. And it's like, I don't want to just judge everything based it's going to fall into one category or other. The people who are always pushing wokeness, that's what they do. If you are in favor of great storytelling and these franchises, you don't just want to be the mere version of that. I mean, right. Then what really are we creating here?
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that. But you don't want to be a woke show or a woke movie. You don't want you don't want your identity to be that, like which happens all the time in Hollywood. Hollywood producers will hire from the top down on certain films and certain productions and certain franchises. They will hire based on it's how it is. Intersectionality, social agenda, and it seeps its way into the material. Like you see it with a lot of stuff. Ghostbusters 2016. You see it with Terminator Dark Fate. You see it with a lot of stuff. Like I'm not discounting any of that. But there's a difference between those, in my opinion, and like if Tarantino made Kill Bill Volume 3 today and was criticized for falling into the feminist bandwagon. It's like, no, he's not. He's not doing that.
Have you seen the original? Did you see the originals?
Yeah. And the women kick so much ass in that movie and in those films, and they beat the fuck out of men that are twice the size of them. Like, that's the same argument they use today. And it's like, well, you guys, it depends on how it's done, how tasteful it is. You have to be able to interpret the art that's in front of you. You have to be able to you have to have some level of media literacy. Because if you're just like a robot and you're like looking and you're counting how many women are on screen and how many men are on screen, and that you have an algorithm or something, that's bad. That's very bad.
Lofty, do you feel like things are changing at all in terms of what, for one, so like for one factor, of course, the economy, we're going to recession. So where Disney might think they could get away putting out something like Last Jedi, where they're just kind of half-assing it and it's kind of politically correct. Now they really do have to think about it because they have to get right. And also we see things like with, I'm sad at the result, but Henry Cavill, who has come out and it's pretty obvious, he's a huge Witcher fan. He's read all the books by Sapkowski. He's he's gung-ho. And while he kind of lost that fight, it was really, it gave me a lot of hope seeing someone with that much influence and effect being open about being a fan and wanting to do right by this franchises. Does that give you hope? Do you think things are going to change, or what do you think is the future of the media woke question?
I think it's going to be a hodgepodge of, I think it's going to be chaos for the next semi-long period of time. I think eventually you won't see a drop, any kind of dramatic anything. Hollywood's not going to crash and burn like people are predicting. Oh, in 3 years, Hollywood's dead. Disney's not going to last 5 years. Yeah, they will. But it's also not going to be like 100% woke, because like you said, there's people in the industry who care about art, and they care about the art over the politics. Quentin Tarantino is still making films in the Hollywood industry, and he doesn't give a shit about, I'm sorry if I'm not allowed to swear on this platform on your show.
If it's a problem, I'll just believe it. Don't worry. Yeah.
Tarantino doesn't care about political correctness. He's never has. Neither does Christopher Nolan. Neither does Martin Scorsese. There's so many directors in the system that are great. And it's like, they're not going to go away. And then you have people like Robert Eggers coming up, right? Who just got yelled at by Hollywood, by Twitter for making an all white Viking movie, right? He doesn't care. He doesn't actually care. And the studios don't care. They care about money. They really do. That's what they care about.
No, exactly. And if they understand the money is with the fans, then they'll come back. At least I hope. That's what I hope.
I hope so. The problem is that movie made $70 million, unfortunately. The Northman is the best film of the year by far, in my opinion, like artistically. And even in terms of, I consider it a blockbuster. I think it's an epic movie, but it only made $70 million because, and I yell at people on my side all the time because they don't go see these movies because they're like, I'm not going to give Hollywood my money. And then I'm like, well, why would you not go see a good movie that you want actually enjoy and prove to Hollywood what you want to watch? Like, tell them what you want to watch with your money. That it makes absolutely no sense to me. So now Robert Eggers is screwed because you didn't go see his movie. Now he's got to pander to the other side. It's like, are you crazy? Don't do that. Please go watch movies that you guys think are good. Watch them. Go to the theaters.
Yeah, it's not enough just to be against things. You also have to find things that are worthwhile investing. Okay, so I'll have one more question and then we'll closing thoughts.
Oh, sure.
So the G4 TV stuff.
Yeah.
Were you a fan of G4 TV back in the day? I don't know how old are you, but you remember all that period?
Oh yeah. And in middle school, I was watching G4. Chris Gore, I believe, turned me on to Old Boy, which is like a foreign movie that is really cool. I remember like I watched American Psycho when I was like 15 because Attack of the Show or whatever was talking about it. I loved it. I loved G4 back in the day. I loved the show Icons, where they went over. It was a documentary about all these different iconic people and game developers. I liked
Yes,
G4.
yes, I do remember,
remember
that. They had good documentaries. They
did.
would pump one out every now and then.
Yep, that's great. But now
Okay,
now it's done. Now it's bad.
I know that it's painful. I was going to ask, what did you think of that whole debacle, and what do you think the lesson should be, the takeaway? Because it's been it's pretty close to exactly a year that this whole
There's a couple of different lessons. One, it's not just don't. Well, it is. The number one thing is don't attack the people that are watching you. Don't do it. I mean, you could do it, but you're going to get canceled. I'm not going to get canceled, but no one's going to watch you, and then you're going to have to find another job. But that falls on Frost, I think, or the people who hired her. Now, I know G4 was trying to do other forms of entertainment, like they were doing VTuber content that was somewhat edgy and controversial and, not politically correct, but, which is fine. But they screwed up because they didn't punish the person that was in the headlines. They didn't go out of their way to tell them, okay, look, this is not who we are. We apologize to the fans. It's their responsibility. So not only did Frost screw up, but G4 production and G4, the team, everybody, everybody came to her defense, and it was just a very bad idea, and they paid the price. Yep. That's how I saw it.
That's how I saw it too. And I did, and part of me feels bad because I think Frost, I don't know if she has some kind of issues. I honestly think she walked into the buzzsaw. Yeah. I don't think she understood.
I agree.
Sweetie, we don't say that out loud, actually. I know our company says it. We don't you're not actually supposed to go out there and say that.
No. Here's another. Well, you're right, but she also came off as very egotistical and making the show about her. She even said in the thing, she was like, "This wasn't scripted," or I'm gonna go off script here and talk about. And they were like, "Oh, what is she gonna say?" The people next to her had no idea. Yeah. You can't do that.
Oh my gosh, their faces. That can still see it in my head too.
Adam Sessler was like, wait, where is it? I have a clapping. Adam Sessler was like, clap, clap, clap. You guys remember that? That was funny.
Oh my gosh. It's so weird. It's so weird. So sad to see our icons fall. All right, Lofti, what are you doing now, and where can people find you?
Well, speaking of icons falling, there are icons rising. So, I include myself in that but there's plenty of us, sub to all these people that I referenced tonight, Nerdrotic, Geeks and Gamers, go sub to some of these smaller channels like Flaccid Phoenix. Give a little shout out to Flaccid Phoenix, the Midweek Hump. All these guys are trying to be a positive influence in the community.
Such creative names.
Yeah, it's entertaining. It's just it's nerds having fun talking to each other about stuff. But yeah, my channel is Lofti Pixels on YouTube, and and Twitter, LOFTI Pixels. And I do video games, anime, movies, television, comics. I have a lot of hobbies, but I do live streaming twice, a couple times a week. I make funny videos. I usually make fun of politically incorrect things because I think it's genuinely some of the funniest comedy. Objectively, yeah. If you're offended by that, you're pretending to be offended. You're actually laughing. If you're by yourself in the bathroom taking a poop and you're watching some video and then you tweet out how offensive it is, but in reality you're laughing. You're laughing and you're peeing your pants because that's how funny it is.
We've seen the Dave Chappelle numbers. We know everyone is watching.
Everybody wants to watch it, and then they go on Twitter and say it's offensive, but reality they're laughing. That's my theory.
I agree. Well, Lofti, thanks so much for taking the time to come here on the podcast. This is a great conversation. I'm sure the audience will enjoy it. And of course, like Lofti says, go check those people out. Follow Lofti's stuff. His, even if you're not into YouTube, his Twitter, he's a pretty funny guy, and he usually has a pretty good insight now and then. So great that you came here today. And until next time, our viewers, keep geeking out.